I just threw away my Xbox. The new Halo just came out, and I was playing it on the Xbox several hours a day. And I threw it away. I threw the Xbox away. A lot of people who hear that are going to think, wow, you are really, really stupid. Because why not just sell it? If you're going to get rid of it, why not go to Craigslist or Facebook sales or, sell it to someone online, make some money? Well, the process of selling it would take at least a few hours. It would take a few hours of my time. And the time that I would spend trying to sell the Xbox, to me, is worth more than the Xbox itself. The Xbox is worth like $300. And that time, several hours of my time, I value at greater than $300. Plus, in the intermittent time between actually selling it and figuring that out, I'd be that much more likely to keep playing the Xbox. And I might tell myself, you know what, I'm just going to keep it. I might rationalize. I'd be giving myself way too much leeway to change my mind. And then thirdly, it's symbolic. If I get something out of it, if I'm selling it, getting money out of it, that is not as strong a message that I'm sending to myself than if I just throw it away. So I threw the Xbox away, and instead I bought a drum kit. I used to play drums all the time. It's something that's very fun. It's something that is very similar to playing video games in that it's fully engaging. It gets you into a flow state. It's something you can do in a very relaxed way. Like if you don't want to work, you can just play some music along to songs. You can do that, and it kind of has the same benefits, the same dopamine and all that kind of stuff that playing video games does, except it's a good workout. You can burn a good 500 calories in an hour playing drums. It is learning a skill that has actual value, and it doesn't have the dirty high that playing video games does, where afterwards you feel derpy. Right? If you play video games too long, you start to feel very derpy, and on another, like I play Halo. That's my game of choice, and I'm pretty good at it, but it's a very competitive game. So I'm playing online, and when you start losing, it is so frustrating. And if you've ever watched like video gamers on Twitch, you know, like all the pros, all the serious players, they get so pissed when they start losing, when they have a bad streak, when they're just not feeling it. And that's true for me as well. Like I'm getting frustrated at this little cartoon. I'm getting upset at a cartoon, and is that really how I want to live my life? Getting pissed off at this little cartoon. I mean, what am I going to do? Become a pro? Am I going to be a pro Halo player? Probably not. I don't. That's not something I really want to do. And hey, if you seriously want to be a pro or a streamer, that's a whole different story. I think that can actually be a good thing. But for me, it's just recreation. It's just a hobby. So I'm getting pissed off at this hobby that's supposed to be fun. Half the time it's fun, half the time it's frustrating. And it also is stressful when you know, like you're playing for hours on end and you know you're kind of falling behind with everything else, right? You're getting out of shape, you're whatever else, like you're not doing work. And if you play too much, it starts to feel worse than it is no longer relaxing or enjoyable. Because afterwards you think, oh, that was stupid. It's when you get in that one more game mindset. I'll just play one more game. Just one more game, one more game, one more game. So that's why I threw away my Xbox. I got rid of it, put it in the garbage chute because it's partly a symbolic gesture, but it's also such a waste of time when there are other things I can do that are relaxing, that are fun, that are restorative, like playing drums, like going on a walk, yoga, meditating, there's reading, there's a million other things I could do that might not be quite as much of a rush in the sense that, video games are very engaging, but that are good for me in the long term as opposed to being bad for me in the long term. And look, if you're someone who plays video games, I'm not anti-video game. If you're playing video games for 30 minutes, for an hour, for a reasonable amount of time, nothing wrong with that. But for me, it starts to dominate my life. It becomes an addiction really quickly. And the more I play video games, the farther behind I fall in the other areas of my life. And I know that is true for a lot of people. It's not just true for me. And I would recommend, if you're watching this, evaluate which one of those two categories you fall into. Are you the kind of person that can play video games just for a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of fun? It's something that's completely under your control, or does it start to control your life? Are you someone who loses control and the video games take over? And that's a lot of people. That is definitely a lot of people. And I think video games kind of is a lot like cigarettes. So cigarettes in the 50s and before, they were just a cool thing to do. Everyone thought, hey, you get a little bit of a rush, right? You get a little bit of a high. It looks cool. It's this social thing. It's an excuse to take a break at work. So everyone smoked. Then, I believe it was in the 60s, it starts to come out, oh, it causes cancer. It's really bad for you. There's emphysema. It messes up your lungs. It's one of the most unhealthy things you can possibly do. Now, until the 60s, until all that science caught up with smoking, no one knew. And we just all did it, we all encouraged each other to do it, and it became this socially reinforced habit. I think video games and social media and all of those things may be the same. I'm not sure that it's entirely a coincidence that depression, anxiety, suicide, they're going up every year. They're at all-time highs. I also don't think it's a coincidence that adults between the ages of 18 and 30 are having less sex than ever before. It's not because the culture is more tight and conservative. It's not that. It's because we have all of these other outlets for entertainment, or there's things like, watching certain orange and black websites that give you kind of the feeling, but aren't really the full thing. But they distract you enough. They numb the pain of not having intimacy, or of not having a social life, or of having everything just not going well in your life. They kind of numb it temporarily. And that's good enough. We're a lot more motivated to take action when we're in a state of total scarcity. If you had no option to jack off, right? If you didn't have that option, then you'd be a lot more likely to go to bars, or to go meet people at the library, or to join social events. Like, if that was not allowed, you just couldn't do it, wasn't possible, didn't exist, then you'd probably be finding another way to service that desire, if you will. And video games, similarly, they are engaging, and they are entertaining, and they're a way to relax. I think that's all legitimate. But there's other ways to do it that just take a little bit more effort, but are also more satisfying. I've never played a video game and gotten into a state where I'm just emotionally overwhelmed with positive emotion. And I had that happen just now when I was playing drums along to a song. You really get into it, and you can actually give yourself chills. That's not going to happen with a video game. You might get a really good streak or something, and you feel good. But I've never had the same intensity of satisfaction that I do with playing drums, doing something that is more grounded in reality, that's less disconnected. Because when you're playing a video game, you're inherently separating your body from what's happening on the screen. And part of what gets you into a flow state is the feeling of being connected with your body, of being totally at one with your whole body. And that is something that playing drums, playing music, yoga, a lot of different things can do, whereas video games can't. And they're also not going to feel as meaningful as, playing along to a song that whatever the lyrics or the emotions it evokes have a personal connection with you. And that's something that is really worth considering, because yes, video games are easier to start. Learning to play drums is going to be frustrating for a while. Learning to play guitar, you're going to suck, and it's going to be annoying at first. You're not going to get that much flow. You're not going to get in the zone and really just enjoy what you're doing particularly often. That's going to be rare at first. But in the long term, it's actually more enjoyable, more relaxing, more engaging than playing video games. And it also has ancillary benefits. You're learning a real skill that you could use to build friendships. I mean, you could join a band eventually. It's getting you into better shape. You're burning a lot of calories, things like that. And that's something to consider, because I think video games are kind of the equivalent of porn, but for just entertainment / relaxation. They're not the real thing. Doing it too much starts to make you feel like crap. It's very easily accessible, and if you're just feeling like an urge, it's the quickest way to satisfy that urge. Like, you just want some distraction, video games or social media or something like that, TV. That's the easiest way to fulfill that desire. But then afterwards, you don't feel better. It just distracts you. Whereas actual intimacy is very different, right? Afterwards, you feel good about yourself. And it felt like a meaningful experience. So I think that we may find in the next 10 to 20 years that video games are like cigarettes, in that the negative effects may be much greater than we think they are. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, if ADHD and video game use are strongly connected, strongly correlated. Social media, I would say the same is true for that. That it might be connected to ADHD. It might be connected to anxiety. You know what? One of the biggest and most really concerning symptoms of anxiety that I've experienced myself is depersonalization and derealization. It's the feeling that you're almost like in a dream. You're not really here. You feel detached. You feel separate. You don't feel in the world. And that is what video games do. You're playing another character. You're pretending to be someone else. And you're also detaching your consciousness into the video game. I wouldn't be surprised if video games cause depersonalization and derealization. And I don't know any of this for certain. It may turn out not to be the case at all as well. But it's possible. Because the thing you have to understand about science is it takes time to catch up. When a new technology comes out, it takes time. So these very, very addictive, very engaging video games that people will play for hours on end, who knows what the psychological effects of those may be? It's going to take years and years to really figure out what exactly happens, how severe the effects might be. Maybe there's positive effects as well, but when I think about how I feel when I'm playing 6 hours of video games per day, and this was even true when I was in high school, I would play like 6 hours a day, and I wouldn't feel good. It's just this compulsive feeling of needing to play one more game. It may turn out that my hunch about that is incorrect, but even if it's not, all those other things are still true. There are still other ways to entertain yourself that have less negatives and more positives. And I'm not opposed to playing a little bit of video games. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if it's fun for you. But for a lot of people, it gains too much control over their lives. Let me know what you think of this theory in the comment section, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button so you're notified whenever I release a new video.